I want to share some sections from the book Wonder by R.J. Palaco with you. It actually also happens to be my Literature Circle book choice for Module 5. This is a book about a little boy named August Pullman. He's a fifth grader that was born with a lot of facial deformities. And people think he's never been to school because of how he looks. But in reality, it's because he's had 27 surgeries since he was born, and that's kept him home, and his mother's homeschooled him, plus he's kind of small for his age. And his parents have now decided it's time for him to go to school. And he's at the school on a school tour with the principal and his mom and his dad. And the principal's kind of introducing him to some of the staff. And one of the first people he meets is Miss Garcia, the receptionist. And her reaction is one that August refers to many times in the book. "And this is August," Mr. Tushman said. "Mom kind of stepped to the side a bit so I would move forward. Then that thing happened that I've seen happen a million times before. When I looked up at her, Miss Garcia's eyes dropped for a second. It was so fast no one else would have noticed, since the rest of her face stayed exactly the same. She was smiling a really shiny smile. And when I read that, I knew that August recognized that she was trying to look at him all normal, but in reality she was kind of shocked, probably by his appearance, and he was able to recognize that it was not a genuine smile anymore. It was kind of, oh, okay, nice. And so she's making an adjustment herself to him, and it's something that he's unfortunately said he's used to it because he's seen it a million times before. Then we go back to where he's at, or go further in the book to where he's at his first day of school. He's gone on the school tour. He's arriving in his classroom for the very first time. I went inside the classroom, and the teacher was writing on the chalkboard while all the kids started sitting at different desks. The desks were in a half circle facing the chalkboard, so I chose the desk in the middle towards the back, which I thought would make it harder for anyone to stare at me. I still kept my head way down, just looking up enough from under my bangs to see everyone's feet. As the desk started to fill up, I did notice that no one sat down next to me. A couple of times someone was about to sit next to me, then changed his or her mind at the last minute and sat somewhere else. At this point, I was feeling really bad for August because he's being very brave, walking into school for the first time as a fifth grader, and no one even wants to sit next to him because of his appearance. So it made me really sad for him and what he was going to have to go through to be a student at school. Then we get the teachers handing out their locker combinations, and there's one little boy named Henry who's sitting up in another section of the room, but he's sitting in a chair with another person because even he didn't want the desk next to Henry, which was the only empty chair in the room. So Henry's doubling up with someone. So she calls Henry up to get his locker combination folder, and she sends him back to go sit with August. So she calls him up and she says, "Henry, there's an empty desk right over there. Why don't you take that seat, okay?" She handed him his folder and pointed to the desk next to mine. Although I didn't look at him directly, I could tell Henry did not want to move next to me, just by the way he dragged his backpack on the floor as he came over, like he was moving in slow motion. Then he plopped his backpack up really high on the right side of his desk, so it was kind of like a wall between his desk and mine. Again, August is being shunned by the classmates that he's going to spend the school year with, and Henry's made it very obvious by dragging the backpack and stacking it up where he can't even see him. So I can only imagine what August must be thinking of, what is school going to be like? Am I going to be able to make any friends? And we go down a little bit further, and August goes up and gets his and comes back to his seat, and he sits down. And after he sits down, he doesn't spin his locker combination. He says, "I resisted spinning the combination when I sat down, even though everyone else was doing it, because she had specifically told us not to. I was already pretty good at opening locks because I had used them on my bike. Henry kept trying to open his lock but couldn't do it. He was getting frustrated and kind of cursing under his breath." Well, then at this moment I stopped and I thought, maybe August is going to help him with his combination lock, and the two of them will become friends, and it'll totally turn around the situation where him and Henry will be friends, and maybe it would be a friendship I would continue to read about further in the book. But I wasn't real sure because Henry's put the barrier up. Now that teacher's handed out all the locker combinations, and she's kind of looking at the students and things. She smiled at everyone, though I felt like she was smiling at me the most. It wasn't a shiny smile like Miss Garcia's smile, but a normal smile like she meant it. She looked very different from what I thought teachers were going to look like. Now, I'm not sure what August thought teachers were going to look like, but I was kind of glad here that he felt like she did not give him the shiny smile, the fake smile, which is, it made me happy for August. And so I'm thinking that it made him feel the same way, that he's at least making a friend in one of his teachers and will be comfortable with one of his teachers because she didn't give him that look he'd seen a million times of not a genuine smile, but a fake smile. So she turned around and started writing on the chalkboard. Henry still couldn't get his lock to open, and he was getting more and more frustrated every time someone else popped one open. He got really annoyed when I was able to open mine on the first try. The funny thing is, if he hadn't put that backpack between us, I most definitely would have offered to help him. And that made me proud of August, that despite what he walked into, no one wanted to sit next to him, Henry expressing obvious discomfort with having to sit next to him and trying to create a barrier, that August was still going to be the bigger person and help him open his locker, but Henry had made that even more difficult. So I'm looking forward to continuing reading in this book. I've actually only read that far, and learning more about how this is going to come out for August. Is he going to make friends, and what's going to happen, and how school will go for him. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my selections.